Lab, a cute and friendly auto battler where you craft pets and genetically engineer the most powerful one. And don't worry, no dark twist here, just pure and wholesome fun. The Pirate Software Jam. 2 weeks to make a game with the theme Alchemy. No wait, Shadows? Wait, what, it's both? So the next 2 days, me and a team of 2 other game developers try to come up with a game idea. Yes, you heard that right. 2 entire days. You know, that's like the length of a regular game jam. But we figured it's a long jam, so there's no need to rush.
Oh, how naive we were.
But then, we had it. A pet crafting game.
Wait, isn't the theme Alchemy and Shadows? How is that at all related?
Wait. Let me explain. But first, I have to confess to something. I might be addicted to Noita. And if you ever played Noita, you'll know about its wand crafting mechanic, which has players avoiding grass like it's a puddle of acid, spending thousands of hours to create the most powerful of wands.
Holy shit!
Unfortunately, I'm not there yet, so here's a very dumbed down version of how it works. You add an active spell to your wand to make it go boom. You can add a modifier to change how your spell works, to make an even bigger boom. You can then add triggers to make spells cast even more spells when they hit enemies. Or yourself. Okay, so in our game, instead of wands, you're gonna have pets that have a list of spells and modifiers that it will use to fight in battles. And then you would breed and modify these pets so you would get a powerful combination of traits. So we've taken care of alchemy, but what about shadows? We'll get to that later. I think we better get started. So I opened up a new Unity project, added a simple grid, some pets, and a camera controller because that was such a priority apparently. Then it was time to add some spells. I started off with projectiles, like this bouncy water droplet. At first, I tried using Unity's built-in rigid body for the physics, but that didn't work out too great because of the whole physics thing. You see, a lot of my projectiles didn't follow the laws of physics, so I just decided to make my own rigid body. It's much more basic, but it gets the job done, and it allows me to move my projectiles in funky ways. Next, I moved on to area spells. They were much easier to make because they didn't need to move. I added this puddle of water spell which deals damage every second a pet stands inside. I just have a collider that tracks all the pets that enter and exit the area, so I know who should take damage. We're gonna need a lot more spells for this game, so I try to make my code as reusable as possible. Well, as reusable as it can be when you're completely sleep deprived. But I try to divide spells into multiple components. So for example, this next spell, the black hole, is both a projectile because it needs to move, but also it's an area spell because it sucks the enemies around it. It doesn't deal any damage, unless you count
emotional damage.
But that's enough active spells for now. It was time to move on to modifiers. I started off with some basic modifiers, like speed and acceleration. They work very similar to Noita. So whenever a pet casts a spell, it will look through the modifiers from left to right until it encounters an active spell. And then it applies all those modifiers to that spell. Next up were the multicast modifiers, which allowed casting multiple spells at once. So for example, triple formation would cast 3 active spells at the same time, applying all the modifiers to all 3 of them at no extra mana cost. Okay, this part was kinda interesting, so here's your warning for a 10-second info dump. Okay, here we go. So the way I figured out what spells to cast is by constructing a tree. Here, when traversing the trait list, if I encounter a free cast modifier, I would add that as a node to the tree. And then recursively look for the next 3 spells to add them as children. Some of these spells can also have multicast modifiers of their own, so it can really go out of hand. Okay, that's it for the info dump. We can move on to trigger modifiers. Okay, this is where it all comes together. I'll start off with the hit trigger for now. The way it's gonna work is whenever you cast a spell that has a hit trigger modifier, whenever it hits an enemy, it will cast the next spell that comes after. So here, I can have a hit trigger modifier on a droplet, which will cast a puddle spell when it hits an enemy. Very nice.
You got mail.
Ooh, what's this? Alright. The pets are looking nice, especially you, Gerald. But they're kinda just standing there, so it's time to add some movement. My idea for this was to add a minimum and maximum range for each active spell, so that the pet would first pick a target and walk to that range before casting a spell. And that kind of worked, but they still stood there after walking. So I also added some random movement if the pet is in range. Though I can't help but notice that my pets are drifting more than my oiled up character in Noita trying to dodge fire. So I added a jumping animation whenever they move, and it looks pretty good. So here's the thing, I'm not the biggest fan of Unity's UI, and this game would require by far the most complex UI I've had in a jam game, or a game period. You see, all my previous games didn't have any UI at all, or it had like 2 buttons max, and this one had like at least 3, so yeah. But seriously, who decided this resistant chat would be a good use of our time?
You know it's hard to remember the people we used to be. It's even harder to remember.
Oh, right. But I'm sure I can get it done using Unity's UI line renderer. Unity has a UI line renderer, right? Okay, finally, it actually works. Just don't touch it. Do not even think about it. Okay, it's time to put crafting in this whole pet crafting game. You get me? And I was initially thinking of some complex UI to combine pets, but then I remembered you can just feed 2 animals in Minecraft to breed them. And that's gonna be way easier. So we're just gonna yoink some of that, don't mind me. Now I had to decide what traits to give to the children. And at first I was just taking random traits from each of the parents, but that was way too difficult to get the traits you want. So I instead decided to combine all of the traits from both parents. Oh, right, and you can also breed pets of different species, which you shouldn't think about it too hard. Next, I added a mutation trait, which can either remove, add, or randomize an existing trait. I also made it so that a pet can only receive traits based on the species that they are. So if Gerald over here, who is a 50% snail and a 50% fish, he's not gonna be receiving an eagle trait anytime soon. And this is where the biology interpretation continues falling apart, because next I added the split trait, which you might have guessed splits the animal in 2, each part taking some of the traits. And finally, we have a shuffle trait, which shuffles the order of the traits. Yeah, don't ask me the biology behind this.
You've got mail.
Oh, you're back. Oh, these are cute. Wait, what's this last one? Oh, I'm sure we can find a use for this. On another topic, it seems we're dealing with some population problems, so we better do something about it. I was thinking we should stop breeding them and let them live a happy pet life. So we've taken care of alchemy, but what about shadows? Just kidding.
Let's dig an infinite dark hole where you can sacrifice every living soul into the Shadow Realm in return for some treats, which you can use to grow an entire new generation of new pets, just to sacrifice them in an infinite cycle of doom.
But I prefer to call it a game loop. Anyways, I also made it so you can throw in treats into the hole to craft other treats, and the game was shaping up great. There's just one tiny problem. So in our original plan, we were planning to have 4 active spells, 4 modifiers, and 4 passive spells. Times that by 6 species, that's 72 unique spells that need code, visuals, icons, descriptions, balancing, and they all have to interact with each other. Yeah, that's not happening. So let's try to cut that in half. Yeah, maybe one more time? Okay, this looks doable. So I did some digging off camera and I've somehow managed to finish all of them. I'll try to list them off in one breath. Here we go. Droplet, puddle, spray, tornado, black hole, bullet, shield, lightning, mine, speed increase, decelerate, accelerate, double cast, triple cast, double formation, triple formation, pentagon formation, lifetime decrease, lifetime increase, spiral pattern, random pattern, wave pattern, hit trigger, expire trigger. Now that we have all the spells, it's finally time to make some arenas, where you can fight and capture enemy pets that you defeat. I didn't want all the levels to look the same, so I designed some arenas in Blender. I kept them pretty simple and just scaled them up and down to make it look like I've actually put effort. Finally, I added a wall to make sure the pets don't run away when I'm not looking. And it was finally time to design some enemies.
The plan is we cook.
Sorry about that. Okay, this one looks sick. I put a pentagon formation with 5 spray spells. I gave this one a shotgun Just please don't call PETA. It's just a triple cast with some bullets and a wave pattern. It's completely balanced. Only needed to nerf it like 5 times. Okay, these are nice, but I should make some simpler pets for the easier levels. Just kidding, look at this. A bullet with a trigger that places mines on hit, with a black hole to suck you into the mines. Okay, simpler this time for real. Psych! A shield with a hit trigger that releases 5 spiral tornadoes in a pentagonal pattern. So it was around this point that I realized this game was freaking complicated. So I stopped adding features and decided to make a tutorial. I used the state machine, which had a state for each stage of the tutorial that was checking whenever certain stuff was completed. I also spent way too long preventing players from completely breaking the tutorial by sacrificing all of their pets. Freaking psychos. You know, this is why we can't have nice things.
You've got mail.
Oh hey. Ooh, looking good. Well, I better add them to the game. So that's what I did, and a bunch of other visual improvements, like this selection arrow and a whole party system where you can add or remove animals. And apparently outlines are the hardest thing in the world, because I tried to do them like 5 times and it almost broke the project. So maybe let's not do that 2 hours before the deadline. So I decided to call the game done, and it was finally time to submit. And go to sleep.